Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambeau channel. Well, the asshats at the SEC have done it yet again. The SEC, last minute, dropped about 1,500 pages worth of documents on Empower Oversight, the organization which is suing the SEC. They sued them this past December over discrepancies surrounding a FOIA request, that's Freedom of Information Act request, and this all comes just one day before filing for summary judgment in this particular litigation. So I'm going to share with you what Empower Oversight has to say, and I have one additional topic for this latest Moon Lambeau hot jam that I'll cover right after this. Attorney John Deaton is highlighting comments, increasingly aggressive comments from Kim Jong-Gensler, and he says that this points to the fact that, from his perspective at least, that the SEC is going to be suing cryptocurrency exchanges going to be suing cryptocurrency exchanges rather soon. So plenty to unpack here. But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. And you'll see as I go through this that the SEC continues to expose themselves as what they are. Frankly, vindictive little jackasses who will destroy the lives of the investors they're sworn to protect when they believe it will help themselves in their careers. That's what this looks like to me. So what you're going to get in this video, for this portion of it anyway, is you get to kind of see the tricks, how the sausage is made from the SEC's perspective, and how those who are forced to deal with it end up having to respond. So this piece came out today. This is from Empower Oversights, and it's titled, SEC Lifts Unspecified Redactions on nearly 1,500 pages of crypto conflict documents. Empower Oversight filed a motion in the Eastern District of Virginia in its lawsuit against the Securities and Exchange Commission seeking time to conduct a detailed review of about 1,500 pages of documents that the SEC dropped just one day before filing for summary judgment in Freedom of Information Act litigation, that's FOIA for short, FOIA, over cryptocurrency conflicts of interest at the agency. And so I'll just pause to note, you will recall that at the Empower Oversight, they're suing over documents specifically having to do with Bill Hinman and high-ranking SEC officials. Anyway, Empower Oversights continues. According to the SEC, the documents consist of new versions of all the previously produced documents, but with some redactions lifted to publicly reveal new information. So let me pause again to remind you that we've seen some of the stuff that was sent to Empower Oversights, and there are portions that were, let's just say, fairly heavily redacted. I think it's safe to say. So what they did here, and you'll see just how disgusting it is as we go through this, but I'll tell you, Empower Oversight's response is pure gold. And why do I say it? Because it's purely logical, and they're clearly on the right side of this thing. But basically what they did is they sent over the same documents. So these 1,500 documents, they've been sent to Empower Oversight before, but these 1,500, this version of them anyway, has more information because less is redacted. So anyway, Empower Oversights continues, and they write, however, the SEC failed to indicate where exactly it had lifted redactions. See the game they play? When Empower Oversight sought clarification about how and whether the SEC had marked the newly revealed information, the agency advised that Empower Oversight would have to conduct a page-by-page comparison to the original document productions to hunt for the new information. So there you go. They just hand over the 1,500 pages, and their attitude is, see you later, bitch. That's what these SEC pricks are doing. That's exactly how they're approaching this. Piece continues. This is another example of the SEC playing silly games with serious litigation, said Empower Oversight founder and president Jason Foster. Americans deserve better treatment than this, and these tactics are further evidence of bad faith and lack of professionalism. Now, let me pause right there because I got a comment from attorney John Deaton. He highlighted that in a tweet, and he captioned it. He wrote, further evidence of bad faith and lack of professionalism. And then on that, attorney John Deaton said on Twitter, where have we heard similar remarks? Judge Netburn said the SEC engages in hypocrisy and the agency's lawyers, quote, lack a faithful allegiance to the law, end quote. Almost sounds like a mean tweet by me, but that was from the judge. And there you go. That's what Attorney Deaton had to say, and that's spot on. And what he's referencing is my favorite thing that I've seen from Judge Knepper in this entire damn case. All the pretrial stuff, anyway. It was just the most scathing rebuke you could imagine, calling the SEC's hypocrites and stating that they're not acting in faithful allegiance to the law. That is scathing from a judge. Not a good look, SEC. Of course, I don't think that they necessarily care, but it's not a good look. Let's just go ahead and say that. Anyway, Empower Oversight then continues. Empower Oversight sought to confirm in an email exchange with SEC FOIA officials and DOJ attorneys whether and how the new information may have been marked. However, according to the SEC, it failed to indicate specifically what new information it had decided to produce at the last minute or why. Please note, not all unredacted materials are marked with these red outlines. The newly unredacted information consists of certain email addresses and Simpson-Thatcher client names. A page-to-page comparison should be performed for an accurate analysis of these records, end quote. Now, in order to try to understand why the SEC failed to mark the new information in the versions of the documents provided under FOIA, Empower Oversight wrote the following. So just pause and note. This is what they sent to the SEC. And the reason that I love this and say it's pure gold is because they're destroying the SEC with logic, and it's purely via questions at this point. But you know the SEC, either way they answer. First of all, it's not in good faith. It looks really bad for them. So check this out. Here's what Empower Oversight said in response to this. Thank you for that clarification. However, it raises other questions. Number one, are you saying that you failed to mark the new information in any way as you lifted the redactions? 2, how did you internally track which redactions were being lifted? 3, do you have versions of these documents internally that have the new information marked so that SEC staff and Department of Justice attorneys are not required to do a page-by-page comparison to review which redactions were lifted? So pause, think about this. You understand, the SEC staff and DOJ will be going through this. Do you think that the SEC is going to make its SEC staff compare 1,500 pages side by side, 2 different versions, or do you think they actually have a version that indicates what was unredacted? What do you think makes sense? Because I'll tell you where I'm betting my money. Do I even have to say it? Obviously, there's another version here. I mean, these people are terrible, and they're not stupid though. I mean, like, yeah, there's some ways in which they approach this case which it's pure incompetency because they can't remember the lies. And that's what the real problem is. They're not stupid, but they can't keep track of their own damn lies. And then they verbally twist themselves up into a pretzel, like trying to defend all sorts of different things depending on what's being asked at any moment in time. Number 4, if the answer to number 3 is yes, then why did you not produce those versions of the documents rather than versions that do not have the new information clearly marked? Number 5, if the answer to number 3 is no, then how were SEC and or DOJ staff possibly able to make rational and consistent decisions about which redactions were going to be removed and why if they could not readily ascertain which new information was being proposed for release? Pretty reasonable questions, right? And then they go on to note that if the extension that Empower Oversight is granted, then they'll have until October 3rd to go through the 1,500 pages. So I don't know why it wouldn't get approved. Presumably it will. We'll wait to see what happens. But this is the game that the SEC is playing, and I find it rather repulsive. Now on to the next topic. From CoinDesk, here's the headline. SEC Enforcement Chief. We can't ignore crypto law breaking. That's the title here. And I'm going to share with you what Attorney Deaton has to say right after I highlight just a couple key parts to set the table here. But Attorney Deaton does believe that this is just further indication that cryptocurrency exchanges are about to get the rear sides handed to them via lawsuit. They are going to get sued into oblivion, just like Ripple, just like Library, just like Dragon Chain. Name your crypto firm. They're going to get sued too. They are not protected, and I think that it was a strategic mistake for the likes of Coinbase and many others to halt the trading of XRP. Again, I don't blame them. They were put in a tough spot. And at this point, there's additional information and additional hindsight, but they're the legal experts. They should have seen that this was coming. Because if you're gonna halt the trading of XRP, but then when everything else gets attacked, you're like, okay, now it's really going too far. Now you're telling us all this stuff. Were we supposed to halt the trading of everything? And that's when you want to push back. That's the problem. You should have pushed back immediately. That would have been much more admirable. And again, I get it. It's not like I want to victim blame here, but there was a better path forward. I do firmly believe that. Piece reads as follows. Gerber Gruhl, Director of Enforcement at the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, said his agency can't look the other way as the cryptocurrency industry violates securities laws. Oh, he's flying in with a cape to save us, folks. Do you see this? It often seems that critics are upset because we're not giving crypto a pass, Gruhl said Friday at a Practicing Law Institute conference in Washington, D.C. His brief remarks focused largely on crypto. It was the only industry specifically addressed, revealing how much the agency is currently thinking about digital assets. The SEC needs to impartially enforce the laws on the books, and ignoring them would be a betrayal of trust, and that is not an option for us, he said. As comments and more detailed remarks from the division's new crypto chief come on the heels of a series of remarks and interviews done by SEC Chair Gary Gensler this week. And let me just pause and note, here's the money part that Attorney Deaton ends up referencing. Reads as follows. Gensler also issued a strong warning to the digital assets industry that his agency would not sit idle on enforcing U.S. laws against unregistered exchanges and tokens that fail to register as securities. So, there. Do you think he'd say something like that if he weren't about to sue a bunch of, or at least one major cryptocurrency exchange into oblivion? Maybe it'll be a bunch at once. I'm not sure. But here's what Attorney Deaton had to say. He shared that quote, that last quote, where, as far as Gensler noting that, not going to sit idle, going to enforce U.S. laws against unregistered exchanges and tokens that fail to register as securities. Attorney Deaton then wrote, translation, Gensler and the SEC are suing exchanges soon. So, folks, it's just coming. It is just a matter of time. and mind you, and credit to Attorney Deaton when this comes to pass, and I do believe he's right and it will come to pass. He said it's going to happen this year. And I'll tell you this, even if it takes the SEC a little bit longer, and in terms of the time frame, it's not technically this calendar year, it's still going to happen. So Attorney Deaton will be proven to be right no matter what. Just about no matter what, anyway, so far as I'm concerned. These frickin' jackasses. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say are right. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.